Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Well, I should say good evening. It depends on how you think. It's 5:30 here on the 12th day of December of 2017, and I am glad that this is. Well, I was about to say that I'm glad that this is like the third show before the end, and it's kind of happy to be kind of towards the end. But I've enjoyed this season. But I'm more happy because I'm happier because we have a special guest with us that I told you about last time. But let me remind you that you are watching the show, the Peaceful World Movement show called the Peace Show. Peaceful World Movement is brought to you, the show is brought to you by Peaceful World Movement, a non-profit organization, www.shypeace.net. You can send me an email, peter@peacefulworldmovement.org. 716-603-0992 is where you can reach us. And we are located on the south side of Chicago at 11451 South Michigan Avenue on the south side of Chicago. This is a live call-in show, so you can reach us at 312-738-1060. Today I have the distinct pleasure of bringing next to us and to this fore a very special friend, I can say, since 2015, but he is the one who is he probably doesn't want me to say the word boss because he's not the type of guy that thinks like a boss, but a provost who is the chief academic officer, as Gregor Tuswalder was with us here a few shows ago, and Provost Michael Emerson from North Park University is joining us. Dr. Emerson, thank you so much.
Awesome to be here.
Yes, it's such a great pleasure to have you here. And you do such a great job at North Park University with the vision that you've brought in. But I can just imagine some of you thinking, a provost? What is a provost? Can you tell our viewers what a provost is?
Yeah, I think it's the oddest job because anybody outside of academia has no clue. There was a show, Gilmore Girls, where they said it was a cheese, so they thought provost was a good thing because it could have cheese. Yeah, provost, as you said, is the chief academic officer, so you have the departments, you have deans, and then they ultimately report to a provost, who's usually second in charge at a university.
So I am the chairperson of the sociology department at North Park University. Dr. Emerson himself is a sociologist, and you'll get to learn that there are different types of sociologists, so you will know about the type of sociologist that he is. He may tell you a little bit about how one gets to be a provost, a young man as he is already a provost. But very importantly, as you know, the show is called the Shy Peace Show, and our focus is on how to create a better world, right? The idea of understanding how do people contribute to a more peaceful Chicago and a more peaceful world by extension. So from the beginning, from day one, you saw a clip from the movie Shy Peace, the Shy Peace promo, and you saw Provost Emerson gracing us with his presence and being interviewed in the film. And you heard us mention at different times about the idea of peaceology that's been built at North Park University as a distinct capability, the idea of the scientific study of peace and peacefulness, the scientific study and the application of peace and peacefulness in multiple contexts, with the belief that a major solution to violence is to make peace profitable. And with peaceology being over and beyond distinctive of peace studies, that in addition to being an intellectual trend and an action trend, it actually has a social action position. The idea that a major solution to violence is to make peace profitable. So, Dr. Emerson, thank you so much for supporting the work that I do for teams at North Park University. But I want to ask you this: why do you support this peaceful world movement with so much enthusiasm? Is there any part of your own work or your own research that makes that idea of making peace profitable something that resonates to you? And before you answer that, because this is a nonprofit show, and we are a nonprofit university, when we talk about making peace profitable, we are not just talking about economically. We're talking about culturally, socially, economically, of course, spiritually, physiologically, psychologically, right, and socially, and also environmentally, as one colleague recently informed. So the idea of when we make a small deposit, because a profit means we make a small deposit into something and most likely we will get even a bigger return than what we deposit, right? So we're saying if we put in a little piece, we'll get a lot more piece back. Why does that seem to resonate with you with such enthusiasm?
All right, so let's talk about, and I don't want to get too academic here, but let's talk about what is a city, and then that will answer your question.
Okay.
So, oddly enough, if you think about what cities are, and they haven't existed all that long, they are spaces for human exchange. Exchange of friendships, exchange of economics, exchange of spiritual, exchange of anything you can think of. Cities are the best invention we've ever made for humans to exchange, and it increases our productivity. And that's why cities just keep growing and growing, and we become more and more urban. So if we talk about peace being profitable, we are talking about, A, taking advantage of what cities are for, therefore exchange, but we have to have certain kinds of exchanges to make cities continue to work. And when we talk about peaceful exchanges, no matter what level they're at, and you mentioned all the different types, then we're talking not only about profitability for us, but we're talking about profitability for our city. And to me, that's a very exciting thing.
Wow, he said he was not going to be an academic, but this stuff is profound. I hadn't even thought about it that way. The exchange, because over the last many years, last couple of decades that I've been doing this, but over the last few hours and few days, I have always had to exchange information.
Yeah.
And there have been times when the information that was transcended to me was that what was very cantankerous, was one that was not friendly. And in exchange, or my response to this, the exchange of information had to be one that had to be within what I call the peaceology framework.
Okay.
That I was going to create an environment that was not hostile, that I was going to, what I teach people to do in workshops, I was going to change the current of the atmosphere to kind of disarm the threat that seems to be in my own persona, because sometimes people believe you are a threat, so they come with an offensive charge, believing that they need to come at you hard. But if they realize that it's a waste of energy, then they may start backing up. So actually, I'd never thought too much about peaceology and peace as an exchange of something, which of course the exchange of information, I know it is, but to hear you talk about that, because that's what happens. So tell me, you came to North Park from somewhere. Where did you come from? And tell us a little bit about your journey to North Park.
Sure, and I'll just go back a little bit, but for 15 years I was a professor at Rice University of sociology, like yourself.
Yeah.
And there we founded a couple of research institutes, one called Race, Religion, and Urban Life, and then the second one, the Center for Urban Research. So where we're focusing on how do we make cities better places for everyone to live. I mean, cities have always been great places for some people and not so nice for other people.
Right.
And so the great human challenge is how do you create a place that works for everyone.
And what have you learned in that process?
Okay, so all kinds of things, and I'll be brief, but
Yeah.
there's a couple of ways that we can orient ourselves in understanding a city. We can say, well, a city is mainly for the market, that it exists to make profit, to create jobs and things like that. And most U.S. cities are, when push comes to shove, that's what they believe a city is. There are cities like Copenhagen, we can talk about that, and multiple cities in Europe and around the world that say, no, a city is really for the people, the citizens. And so we need to structure a city that makes a good high quality of life and creates equality between people. Now, one of those things is that we'll need good jobs, but that isn't the end goal. Whereas in a place like Chicago, the end goal is, let's get lots of jobs, build fancy buildings. We hope that parlays into people having a nice life, but that's not the focus, actually.
So let me remind you, again, you are watching the Shy Peace Show. Peace brought to you by the Peaceful World Movement, located at 11451 South Michigan Avenue on the south side community of Roseland. You can call us at 312-738-1060. I'm your host, Dr. Peter K.B. St. Jean, Associate Professor of Sociology and Chair of the Sociology Department at North Park University and Director of Criminal Justice, both within the School of Professional Studies and within the Sociology Department. Our guest today is Provost Dr. Michael Emerson, a sociologist as well, talking to us about the city. And in a moment, he's going to tell us about how his understanding of cities actually helped to influence, at least I'm claiming that, a certain schedule that is now at North Park University, and how can that help in creating even a more peaceful Chicago? Again, this is a live call-in show, so please call us at 312-738-1060. So, Dr. Emerson, when you came to North Park, one of the first things, you and I came together, so to speak, at the same time. Although probably there was a little bit of, you probably won the ground a little bit earlier than I was because of your position. But as soon as you came basically, as we say in the military, you hit the ground running. You started to talk about if we want to make this place the #1 city-centered Christian university, and if we have to do that, there are ways that we ought to do this. So we're going to take a call from our first caller, and then afterwards I want to understand, tell the people about this schedule, what motivated it, and how does that relate to creating an even more peaceful Chicago. Caller, thank you so much for calling. May I have, please, your question or your comment?
Yes, my question is for Provost Emerson. I apologize, I'm ill, but I wanted to ask this question. Why do you think colleges are important tools in the city for the increase of peace, but also for exchange, especially when people tend to look at colleges primarily as institutions whose goal is to provide credentials and really to aid in the development of the individual student?
Mm-hmm.
Very good question.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, and we'll probably answer that over the course of the rest of the show, but I'll give you my first thoughts on that. So a city that is a dynamic, growing city ultimately relies on its human capital. People that are well-trained, that are creative, that we unleash to be able to solve problems. And that's what universities are part of that system that allows that. We're training people to be creative, to learn what the problems are, and then to find solutions. Universities are also incredible recruiting tools for cities. Any given moment in Chicago, about 250,000 people are students. And most of them, no matter where they come from, will stay here because they've started to make connections, they've learned about Chicago, and they then contribute to the vitality of the city.
Wow. It's amazing. I was listening to NPR radio, one of my favorite radio station to listen to. And this morning they were talking about the environmental brain drain. That's probably not the word they use, but basically the people who study, the global warming,
Yeah.
and how we can predict the kinds of problems that happen in the future. France just made a big move to say the U.S. doesn't want to fund them, so please send them over. And I remember that when I have a program, I teach young children about rockets. And I remember that after the Second World War, the United States basically took a lot of rocket scientists from Russia and developed the rockets in the United States. And NASA and so on kind of built from that. So it's amazing just hearing you talking about, and we talk about the better life, when we talk about exchange, and when we talk about quality of life and peace, the notion of having the university contribute to the thinking, to the doing, and to the application of knowledge, I think is a very powerful thing. Very good question, dear caller. And again, you guys can reach us at 312-738-1060. So we have, imagine that, it's already maybe close to 5 minutes already that we have to start winding up. It looks like we just got into orbit, and it's almost time to land pretty soon. So tell our viewers and remind me of this schedule at North Park. How was that motivated, and how does that tie into this notion of a more peaceful Chicago?
Yeah, and also it'll tie into the question that we just received. Yes. So if we're going to have students integrate into the city, if we're going to have them ultimately contribute to the vitality of the city, the peace of the city, they need to understand the city, they need to make connections in the city. And so for most of us, universities are places we go to and we take classes, either in person or online. Mm-hmm. And then we hope somehow those skills we learn in the classroom will translate to something. What we're doing at North Park is we said, what if we actually structure how we do our courses, our classes, our schedule, so that students every week have the potential to actually be in the city, visiting institutions, learning from alumni, learning from leaders in the city, meeting people, making connections, hanging out with you, and seeing the work you're doing. So through the great work of your fellow faculty, we of course voted, and so that we don't have class on campus anymore on Wednesday afternoons, we send our students into the city. And if they don't go into the city with their particular class, then we usually do something we call Catalyst on Campus, where we will have something, we bring people from the city to campus and we can all attend.
Yes, and I have to say, from I'm teaching two Catalyst courses this semester, my Introduction to Sociology class and my Introduction to Criminal Justice. And each of these, there are different streams in the Catalyst. In the Catalyst 606, 606 really deals with our zip codes. 606 dash, we are 60625. And I took the first trip down to our Peace Palace. We were down to our Peace Palace in South Side Chicago, where you've been, and people have seen it on our film. And we went to the court, and actually there was a RICO trial with about 8 people were murdered, and there were about 13 lawyers, and the students just were very interested. They saw also another murder case. They wanted to see murder cases. And we actually took the criminal justice class to the police academy to understand how police officers understand the use of weapons, and they saw the types of weapons that police officers carry and how they think about weapon safety. And if you have a nursing course, you probably would want to bring the students to the hospital to see if they see blood to pass out. So some of them were interested in understanding firearms as tools that law enforcement people either use or will be around them. So there is, I won't call the name, but there is a range, a private range, that actually I brought those students, and it was amazing to have the students have a weapons safety lesson by instructors for an hour, to have the opportunity to feel the different tools, the weapons that they may use in the profession, and actually some of them actually had the opportunity to fire the weapon for the first time and see that this is not a joke.
Yeah.
And a few of those students were like, this is really what we believe education should really be, because they're criminal justice majors. They were out there. I mean, you should see the reviews that they wrote. Those things are very excited. So the opportunity to free up that Wednesday, because if you had not freed up the Wednesday for that, it'd be very hard. I mean, I'd probably take them on a Saturday, but sometimes for religious or other reasons, sometimes it's a very difficult thing for them to do.
Yeah.
So the idea of having this schedule, do you know of another university in the United States or anywhere else that has that type of schedule?
No. So if somebody knows of it, let us know. But I don't know of any other that does that.
I met a couple nights ago with some faculty members adjunct faculty members for the School of Professional Studies. Some of them are working as police trainers, detectives, and so on. And they're so excited, even though they're part-time workers. When I explained Catalyst 606 to them, and I explained the distinctive that we're building within CJ, Criminal Justice at North Park, where we are actually, it's strange to say that we're building a new epistemology, but peaceology is not yet developed within sociology.
Right.
And the idea that we're saying, in addition to everything that people learn at North Park with a sociology degree or criminal justice degree, they will learn how to create peace in multiple contexts in ways that others have not. And they will have been oriented to the idea that a major solution to violence to make peace profitable. As we see cities grow and we see life and safety in the city as a new normal for the future, and that is going to be in great demand. So we're hoping that we're training the world. I say that we're training the world's first peaceologists, and we went down. In fact, I should say that we went to the Illinois Sociological Association at Milken University on the 17th of November. We presented 11 of our research ideas, and they were on peaceology and better news research. We were studying poverty and peace, revenge without violence, and those types of things. Revenge, decarceration, which is the reduction of incarceration. But the thing is, they were so impressive what we were doing that they asked if we would be willing to host at North Park University the Illinois Sociological Association meeting in 2019.
Good, we'll do it.
And I received, thank you. I received a couple of days ago an invitation to be the next president. Well, I have a lot of things on my hands, but sometimes there are opportunities that you have to weigh. But I think an opportunity to boost what we're doing is a great one. Again, please, you can call in 312-738-1060. Our guest here is Provost Dr. Michael Emerson of North Park University, talking to us about Catalyst 606, talking to us about the importance of the city in everyday life. Now, tell me, I'm going to ask you a more basic question. What got you into this profession of academia? How did you get into that?
Yeah, I actually went to undergraduate at a place called Loyola of Chicago.
I think I've heard that.
Yeah, and at that time, we took classes on the north side on their campus, but also downtown. And I would take the train back and forth. And I recall getting off on the train and seeing the depths of poverty, and then walking a few blocks and seeing the Gold Coast. These are the wealthiest people. And at that time, I had no understanding of how could that be. How could you have such poverty and such wealth so close together? So I remember thinking, this is what I must understand, and that's how I moved into sociology and have been studying it ever since, and particularly cities. Yeah.
It's amazing how the story of sociologists seem to have similar patterns, something that makes us curious. In my intro to sociology classes, I ask students, is there something that you're curious about the world? And I just say it like that. And almost every one of those questions usually falls into something of some social relevance. And that's kind of the power of the profession. But we have a couple more minutes. We just have about 3 more minutes to wind down. And I know you've done work in Copenhagen, and I know you've made a metaphoric comparison between the Korean industry and what you foresee from how you understand it and what could be the peace industry. Can you tell our viewers a bit about that parallel?
Sure. And you may or may not know anything about Copenhagen, Denmark, but it is typically ranked as the world's happiest people and also the best metropolitan area to live in the world based on all kinds of rankings. So we'll leave it at that. In 1980s, late 80s, early 90s, they were on the verge of bankruptcy. Things just weren't going well, and they made a major switch in that crisis to say, we are going to focus on people, and we're going to focus on one kind of industry, what they call the green industry, that the world needs solutions for the environment, and we're going to be the place that does it. And then as we'll draw people from around the world that want to find solutions, and then we'll import these solutions. And they have succeeded wildly at that. That's Chicago with peace.
You've heard it from the man himself. Provost Dr. Michael Emerson, our guest today here on the Shy Peace Show. This man is so brief and so concise. I'm learning so much from him. Maybe you should teach me how to run this show. He has the perfect sound bites with the answers, allowing us to this opportunity. We got a very good call in, and the Shy Peace Show focuses on asking the question, how do we contribute to a more peaceful Chicago and a more peaceful world by extension? Next week, we're having Dr. Chris Hubbard of the School of Business and Nonprofit Management over at North Park University. And he was recently in China, and we'll be talking about some very exciting things, so make sure that you tune in. Dr. Emerson, as we wind down, do you have any final thoughts or comments for our viewers?
Keep watching this show, because we will learn a lot together.
Yes, thank you, man. Very brief and very, very strong and powerful song bites, right? And we want to make sure you look at, we have 2 more shows next week with Dr. Hubbard. And guess what? On the last day, on the 20th, we have a show with someone called Master Kickman.
Whoa.
Yes, Master Kickman, talking about making peace profitable on many different dimensions. So once again, I'm your host, Dr. Peter K.B. St. Jean. I want to thank you for your call, the caller, and I want to thank you for your continued watching of the Shy Peace Show. And you can reach us at 312-738-1060 when we're here, but you can reach us at the Peaceful World Movement at www.shypeace.net. I'm your host, Dr. Peter K.B. St. Jean. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you on next week, the 21st of December of 2017, with Dr. Chris Hubbard. Thank you for watching.